Have you ever noticed that a lot of American idioms are kind of weirdly threatening? Well, I did recently, and I got curious about them, so here are 15 of them for your viewing enjoyment. First, hit and run. This one started from baseball. It's from 1899, and it's a specific type of play where as soon as the pitcher throws the ball, a runner who's on the base tries to run to the next base. It wasn't until 1924 that it took on the meaning of driving away from the scene of an accident without actually stopping to talk to the victim. Hit and runs were such a huge issue that it was actually one of the first traffic laws enacted because it was such a widespread problem. People would run away from the scene and the victims would not be able to identify the person who'd hit them, so it became illegal to do hit and runs. That's kind of sad. Next, ride shotgun. This one's a really fun one. So the story with this goes that when stagecoaches were a thing in the US in the 1700s and the 1800s, they would often have a security guy who would ride next to the person driving the stagecoach. Their weapon of choice would be the shotgun because that was really, really effective at close range, which at that time was kind of the range that most people would try to attack you from. So they didn't actually say ride shotgun at this point in time. This only emerged much later. The first use of the expression ride shotgun was in May 1919, and from there it gained popularity in Western movies from the 30s to the 40s. So today we do still use the phrase ride shotgun to mean to sit in the passenger seat next to the driver. Continuing on with our shotgun theme, let's talk about shotgun wedding. A shotgun wedding does not have anything to do with a specific type of celebration. No, if anything, it is kind of more the opposite of a celebration. A shotgun wedding is something that happens, a forced wedding really, that happens out of pressure. The pressure usually comes from the unwed woman's family. Typically the image is of her father threatening the young man in the situation with a shotgun, saying that if the young man doesn't agree to marry the daughter and make her an honest woman, that something bad is going to happen to him. The next one is wife beater. You might have seen this kind of shirt before and called it a wife beater, but why do you do that? There's a very dark history behind this one. In 1947, there was this awful news article from the city of Detroit where a man made the news for beating his wife to death. And the newspaper included a picture of him along with a caption that said, "The wife beater." And in that image, he was wearing this type of shirt. Then we saw in the media, in popular movies and in TV shows, characters wearing this type of shirt when they would portray characters that were really violent or that were abusive in some way. And the stereotype around this shirt grew. These ideas became so popular that people started widely referring to this type of shirt as a wife beater shirt. Okay, next one. The phrase is sleep with the fishes. So you might be like, oh yeah, didn't that come from mobsters and things like that? Yes, and also no. So a lot of you might know mafia and mobster movies like The Godfather, which popularized the phrase sleep with the fishes. It's a very interesting euphemism for death and disposal of the body. But sleep with the fishes didn't actually begin with mob activities. The first recorded use of the phrase is from a book in 1836 called Sketches of Germany and the Germans, where there's this British fisherman who goes to a small area in Germany, and he's a fly fisherman, and they think that his fly fishing is some kind of black magic, and they're totally not into him being there waving his magic wand all over the place and trying to catch fish that way. Technologia. So the local people, because they're so freaked out by this guy, they break his rod, his fishing rod, into pieces, and they say that if he ever comes back, they'll make sure he sleeps with the fishes. Wild, right? So let's continue with our fish idioms to shooting fish in a barrel. This one is probably easy to understand, right? It just means that something is super, super easy to do. There are a few different theories about how this arose, and a few of them are related to long-haul shipping routes. One I'm much more inclined to believe. One of these theories is that ships on long voyages would have big barrels with fresh water and fish just chilling in there so that people on board could eat the fish during the journey. Sounds reasonable. And if you were to try to shoot one of the fish in the barrel, it would be really, really easy because the barrel's just full of them. The second theory that I found, which I think is less plausible, is that there were dead fish just kept on ice for the same purpose. The third is that there was maybe some kind of game or some sort of sport that people played just for fun, I guess, or for a kind of physical challenge, but I couldn't find any specific examples of that that would indicate that that was the kind of thing that led to widespread use of this phrase. So I'm much more inclined to think that it is the first one if we have a specific origin story for it. So the next expression, which also is related to shooting things, is bang for your buck, or originally bang for the buck. This originated in military and political context during the Cold War. So the bang in this expression comes from military bangs, as in shooting things or exploding, like the bang sound or the bang that is produced when you fire a weapon or drop a bomb on something. And for the buck means the value of that. So bang for the buck means that you get more bangs, more weaponry, or more efficient kinds of weaponry for less money. Today, obviously, it just means getting a lot of value for your money, and it doesn't carry these military connotations, but it did start in these military and political contexts. So let's continue to the next one with drop a bomb or drop the bomb. This refers to sharing something that is just so shocking or so negative or so overwhelming in conversation that people are just aghast. It's really serious usually. We don't positively drop bombs, really. We only negatively drop bombs. And as you can imagine, this did originate in military and political contexts, particularly with the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings in 1945 at the end of World War II. Okay, next is kind of a 2-for-1. I want to talk about shoot and fire and how we use them to mean go ahead in a conversation. Here's a quick example. Hey, can I ask you something? Shoot. Hey, can I ask you something? Fire away. Both of these just mean go ahead or yes, right? So shoot in this sense could have come from the shooting a weapon sense, which is very, very old, or it could have come from the sporting sense, or we also have the meaning of trying to strive or trying to do something, but all of these different senses come from the original meaning of shoot, which is just moving very quickly or trying to thrust something with force in a certain direction. Either way, this use of shoot means yeah, sure, say it, and just say it fast. The fire or fire away response has, in my mind, much clearer military connotations. It's like the person you're asking the question to gives you permission to fire or launch an attack on them with their words. But what do you think? The next one is stick to your guns or stick to one's guns. This one also originated in military and warfare contexts, and it meant quite literally to stand next to your guns or to stand next to your weapons, whatever that might be. Guns, literal guns, cannons, whatever it is that you might be using. It means that even in times of danger, like when you're under attack or when you're worried or you're feeling threatened or nervous or something, it means to stand there and be ready to go and be ready to fight and ready to do whatever you need to do. And then over time, the phrase just evolved to mean standing one's ground even in difficult times. Pretty straightforward one. Let's move on to trigger warning. This is probably the newest word on this list. Trigger itself is not a new word, but the phrase trigger warning emerged online in about the early 2000s, specifically in online discussion groups like forums and things like that, where women were discussing women's issues. So if we trace the word trigger back, we see that it means a mechanism that causes something else to happen, especially like the trigger of a gun. And then over time, that meaning broadened. In the 1930s, it meant to cause something to happen, like something being the catalyst for something else, as in that was the thing that triggered the landslide, or this triggered stock sell-offs. And then from 1986, it expanded even further, and it meant to cause an emotional reaction in something. And this is the trigger that we see a lot in the news and online today. The next one on my list is the expression bury the hatchet. This one is so fascinating. This one comes directly from Native American traditions in North America. So the idea is that when there are two tribes, or more tribes I suppose as well, that are experiencing a period of hostility and want it to come to an end, the leaders of those tribes will get together and they will physically bury their hatchets, bury their weapons as a symbolic gesture of peace. That's pretty cool, right? So we still use this phrase when we want to get past a moment of disagreement or tension, and although we don't literally bury the hatchet these days, we just kind of agree to disagree and move on with our lives. Okay, the next one on my list is probably the darkest one that I have for this whole video. It's to go postal. The meaning of going postal is to very suddenly and very viciously engage in horrible acts of violence, like a rampage. So where does the postal here come from? Unfortunately, there were several very toxic, very dangerous, very unsettling people employed with the US Postal Service who committed horrific rampages in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The phrase itself didn't appear in newspapers until 1993 in the US, and these news stories were so widely known that people started saying that someone was going postal if they did something violent at the workplace. So even though this phrase doesn't really get used very much these days, except as maybe part of a dark joke, it does have a very dark history that I think touches on important concerns related to work environments and mental health in particular. Okay, we're getting close to the end now. The next one is nuclear option. As you can guess, this one has a military background. This one first emerged not in World War II, but in the 1960s in the sense of whether or not to use nuclear weapons for something. But these days it is broadened much, much more, where it doesn't actually get used just in military context, but it can also be used in politics, in government, in business, basically any kind of decision that's usually like a last-minute, last-ditch, very drastic effort that could have very, very big implications, very, very negative implications, and change the way things are done drastically. Let's end with something that's a little bit more lighthearted, maybe. Let's look at the phrase to put someone through the ringer. To put someone through the ringer means to give someone a hard time, or to make something really, really difficult for somebody. But what is a ringer? This is actually a weird one because the phrase was flawed from the get-go. So a long time ago, before we had dryers that would dry our clothes for us, one of the things that we had was a hand crank. So this hand crank would operate two rollers. You'd put your shirt or whatever in between these two, crank it, and the water would come out after you washed it. So they called this a wringer. But this isn't actually a wringer. When you wring something, you twist something like this. But this thing is kind of more like a clothes roller, a flat roller, I don't know what you would call it. So the image of putting a person under the wringer means putting them under an intense amount of stress to extract whatever you can from them, usually information. There are tons of American idioms like these, so I just picked a few for this video. But if you have one that you've thought of while watching this one, leave it in the comments so we can all enjoy. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to get more. See you next time.